the Cordo Coaching Chronicles. I'm Alex, and this is the series where you get a chance to see what it's like inside the world of Magic Limited coaching. I'm joined, as always, by Nathan. We're back once again for Innistrad this time. We're here on our first draft, so we're going to walk through a draft together. Nathan brought this draft to the table. We're going to walk through some decisions, and I'm excited to jump into our first draft. Nathan, just give us a quick update. How have you felt about the format so far? How many drafts in are you? Just the housekeeping stuff, basically.
The usual stuff. Yeah. So this is what we're going to go through today is actually my sixth draft. So far, the format's been pretty kind to me. I'm 24 wins, 16 losses, so 60% win percentage. I actually trophied my very first draft. I've had a couple 5-3, 6-3s, but I definitely had an 0-3 and a 2-3 in there. So I kind of got trounced a couple times as you learn the format.
Okay, so let's just jump into this pick on pack one here. Nathan, thoughts on this pick on pack one?
So one of the things you talked about, doing the 17 lands research, I noticed that the Esper colors were particularly strong, and yes. I feel like every single pack that I've gone through, except for one draft, I've been funneled into those colors. Oh, two drafts, I guess. I had a Boros aggro deck. So I had a draft already, the very first draft with the Patrician Geist, and it worked really well for me. But I also had another draft with the Falcon Abomination, and that worked really well for me. So I went with the Falcon Abomination. I felt like a 2/3 flyer that makes, the zombie was a little more useful than the Geist. But I also was looking at the Olivia's Midnight Ambush, the removal spell, and that I think those are the top ones on there. I don't really know how to read into Faithful Mending, so I kind of left that one alone. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think you took the Falcon Abomination here, right? And I totally agree with that. So there's a few options, and you mentioned them basically here with the Geist, the Abomination, the Olivia's Midnight Ambush. I think that in a good Patrician Geist deck, a deck where you have a lot of flashback, a lot of disturb cards, a lot of spirits, this is probably slightly better than Falcon Abomination, just as a generically good card. But I do think it takes, a little bit more to get there. I'm more comfortable just starting with Falcon Abomination. It's always going to be fantastic. Sometimes Geist is just a 2/2 flyer. Abomination is fantastic in blue-black if you can, pair it with the sacrifice cards, or you can pair it with the cards that care about zombies. But it's just a pretty decent card on its own, honestly, even if you don't have that stuff. So totally agree with that. And, to speak to your point about, the Esper colors, that's just such a big framing point for this format, right? You're going to be, I think it's right to start in one of the Esper colors, blue, black, or white, 95% of the time, just because green and red, green's not so bad. I actually like green, but red in particular is quite weak in this set. It's almost the level of blue and AFR, I would say. I think it's almost that bad. Yeah. So totally buy the Falcon Abomination here. And just before we move on, I did want to touch on Faithful Mending here. I think this is a card I see a bit too often in some people putting it in their blue-white disturb decks. I think the card is a good synergy piece if you have 6, 7, 8, 9, probably about 9 or 10 actually disturb creatures or flashback cards. But if you're not there and you're not consistently discarding 2 disturb creatures, it's just not a good rate for a card, right? It's card disadvantage or card parity when you flash it back. You really want this to be pitching 2 disturb cards that you're drawing, quote unquote, and then drawing 2 new cards. So it's a niche card for blue white, basically.
What about Mysterious Tome? I've played against it once and it did not seem great.
Yeah, so Mysterious Tome actually highlights, we're getting a lot out of this first pick. Mysterious Tome actually highlights a lot, or a very important point about the format. And I think that is tempo negative card draw, or just raw card draw spells, Mysterious Tome, Vivisection, stuff like that, where you're just tapping out or tapping some mana to draw a card, really suffers in this format. Because there's so many value creatures that just generate a value on the end when they enter the battlefield, that die into another creature, that draw you a card, right? The set's just littered with those, that when your deck just has a lot of those in it, you don't really need to play stuff like this to get your card advantage, right? Stuff that doesn't affect the board. The stuff that affects the board gives you enough card advantage, enough value, and this is kind of just it's a bit superfluous, basically.
Got it.
You can fall a little bit too far behind on tempo is the concern. So moving on,
I have to go back and look at my notes, but that might be the very first agree for a non-rare pick to start a season.
Wow, starting off strong. Wow, okay.
I know, I'm excited.
So moving on to this pack here, kind of a weaker pack, but still some decent stuff. What do you like in this one?
So let's see here. What did I had previous experience with the Gavany Silversmith in an aggro deck, and I really liked it. The Gavany Trapper was actually pretty good in that Boros deck that was pretty low to the ground. I have zero experience with Bereaved Survivor. It seems pretty solid. I'd probably, if I was going to go with a white card, go with that one. But I wanted to kind of stay in the blue-black vein, so I went with the Siege Zombie to go with the thing that I already had that makes a zombie.
Yep. I am a big agree with this one too. I think that you're having over this Dunheart Mentor, which is a card I actually like, but I think that just to recap on what I was saying about Esper and blue-black in particular. I think it is right to bias towards those colors very strongly. So much that I think that Dunheart Mentor might be a better card in its deck, like in a green-white deck or a green-blue deck potentially, than Siege Zombie. And that's not even clear, actually, to be fair. But even if it were better in its deck than Siege Zombie is in its deck, I think that black is a strong, much stronger of a color that you should be biasing that direction, basically. And especially when you have Falcon Abomination in the pile already, that already points you that direction. Talking about some other cards here, Silversmith, like you said, pretty good card. I also really like Gavany Trapper. I actually would take Trapper over Silversmith most of the time. If I was in like a really beatdown deck, green, white, red, white, I think Silversmith is the better card. But if I'm trying to get into a Esper white deck, so black white or blue white, I do think Trapper is a little bit better. Just as more of a good way to control the board, good way to tussle with big creatures in the mid game. Last card I do want to talk about here, you mentioned Bereaved Survivor. I think this card's quite bad, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan of it. Even if you're like black white sacrifice and you can trigger this easily, something else dies. It's just too small, right? It's like a 3-mana 2/1, so it's very irrelevant body, very fragile. And then the backside, which we can't see right now, but it's that 3/2 that when it attacks, you bring back a 2 mana value creature. It's fine, that's an okay card, but a lot of times that just dies when it attacks. And then you basically like spent a lot of time and effort to flip this, and then the backside's just not that much of a payoff. So yeah, not huge on this card. So yep, we take the Siege Zombie and we move on. All right, what do we get out of this pack?
So this is the first one that I was actually really unsure about, and I'd be surprised if I got an agree here. Getting a third pick Sunrise Cavalier seems like a signal to me. I had already had good experience with Boros, but it didn't go with my first 2 picks, so I was really reluctant to go there. Gale Drifter seems like a solid card as well. We also have the black removal spell and the Shipwreck Sifters, which I had good experience with before as well. So I was really torn there. But I've also seen, again, this is me following or parroting people I've seen. I've seen good experiences with Flip the Switch. So I said, let's go with that. So I landed on Flip the Switch. Again, makes a zombie, kind of goes with everything else. But I wasn't really sure on this pick at all.
Yeah, so I would have taken Olivia's Midnight Ambush, I think, here, but I don't think it's wrong to take Flip the Switch necessarily. Like, they're pretty close cards, and that's weird, right? It's weird to see this, like, removal spell be close to a counter spell. It's just not something that we're used to. Most of the time, the counter spells are, like, last pick material. You try to not put it in your deck, but Flip the Switch is definitely different. The fact that it makes a zombie is huge. It just, like, generates this additional resource, but also there's a lot of ways that you can play at instant speed in this set. So like you can just have like a kind of like a blue-black tempo-y control deck where you're just like you've got 10 instants and counter spells are good there. I think that I would take the ambush because the removal spells tend to get picked a little bit higher than the counter spells, even though they're both pretty good. So I feel like I'd probably get a Flip the Switch or I dissipate a little bit later. But on power level, they are pretty close. So really, the tiebreaker here for me is that the removal spells, people value removal spells a lot higher in general than they do counter spells. Is general. Even there's gonna be some people, some tables where they know how good Flip the Switch is. But I would bet at this point in the format, just jump into a random arena draft table that most people are going to be taking ambush over Flip the Switch, and we'll also see ambush as more of a signal as over Flip the Switch,
Got it. What about the Sunrise Cavalier? Is it any good in this format?
Oh, really good card. Yeah, really powerful card. I guess I would say that it has the red tax, right? Like it's just being a red card it's a downside, right? Because that means you have to put other red cards in your deck most of the time. There's certainly a lot of good red cards in the formats. Or no, a lot is maybe a stretch, but there are good red cards in the format. I can pinpoint them, right? So when you put red cards in your deck, I'm really hoping to be base the other color. So I would be really happy with a base white deck with like Sunrise Cavalier or maybe a few red removal spells or something, right? So I like the card, don't love the deck it goes in basically, and so I would hope to pick that card up a little bit later is my thoughts here. And then Gale Drifter, like you said, is fine. Shipwreck Sifter is really, really good in blue-white, but it's not, a generically great card. So,
see, I almost took it there. You can see.
Yeah, you're thinking about it.
So that was a disagree then, right?
Yeah, it was a disagree. Well, not quite a mistake. All right, so we take a flip the switch. We move on to this next pack. Thoughts here. Snap up that Eagle Live. no thoughts to be had.
That was a pretty straightforward pick.
Yeah. Search Party Captain's also good, but go with your black cards here. No reason to deviate. Moving on, you see this pack.
So the very first deck I had in the format, I keep going back to it because it's my only experience. Well, not my only because I had the Boros, but experience with white. Borrowed Time did really a lot of work for me in that deck. I had 2 of them. So I wasn't sure between that or... I honestly, none of the other cards in this pack really were drawing me. I think you probably have a different take on that now that I listened to your stream yesterday, but I won't say that I did at the time.
So I actually, if you did take the Borrow Time here, I actually agree with that. I think that it's enough better than the other, the blue cards in this pack, that you should just basically just keep taking the best card this early on. You could still be black-white. You could still be blue-black. Those are both great decks as well. Or sorry, blue-white. Those are both great decks as well. I don't need to be blue-black, But, like you're alluding to, I do like Larger Zombie quite a bit. I think this little guy is a little bit underrated. I'm pretty happy to play him in blue-black, in blue-white. The fact that, he comes down early, blocks decay tokens for most of the game, blocks the early creatures, stops vampires in their tracks as long as they don't have a flyer, and kind of just sits there and improves your draw quality, right? Your draw step essentially. And then in the mid game, when you've got like 6 creatures, a bunch of zombies out, he just makes it so you never flood or never, if you need to hit your 6th land drop, you can hit your 6th land drop. So if this wasn't here, this Borrow Time, I would take the Larger Zombie and be like, not happy to pick on 5th pick, but I would take him over the Amalgam. And it's a card that I don't mind putting in my deck, but I would take the Borrow Time, and that's what you did here as well. I agree with that, and we'll move on to pick 6 here.
I think we should just give you a little shout out right here, right now. As I was watching your stream yesterday, you made it to Mythic number 1 for the second time in this format already.
Yeah, I did, which is pretty cool. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty decent grasp of the format, so it was nice to get that achievement down early in the format. All right,
impressive.
Moving on to this pick, we get the choice between Occultist and Flip the Switch. Looks like you're going for the Occultist here. I mean, there's also Clarion Cathars, so.
Yeah, and so that I'm doing my usual bait and switch here. I was like, I really think I'm going to do with this Occultist, but I actually went with the Clarion Cathars to make more tokens.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine too. I think I think that you risk a little bit being like, I have 2 white cards, I have 2 black cards, I have 2 blue cards. Maybe you get a bit too torn, right? And that's a thing where. I feel comfortable, if I was in this seat, I would feel comfortable just being like, I've got, 2 black, 2 white, 2 blue. I know that no matter where I end up with, or where I end up in this draft, I'll be able to navigate to a spot where it's okay that I'm a little bit scattered early on. But if you feel a little less confident, maybe not you, Nathan, but anybody watching this, if you feel a little bit less confident about your ability to successfully navigate a draft when you're starting in a bunch of colors, you might just want to stick with one of the cards that you have the most colors of, right? Take the Occultist, take the Flip the Switch here. But the more comfortable you are with navigating the draft, it's okay to just take the best card early on, even if it's just a little bit better than Occultist, let's say, and see where things go from there.
So, I mean, just to expand upon that, you'll see this entire draft, I kind of dance between what color pair am I, and I don't know if I did a good job or not. So I'm not an Alex. But second question, is this an agree, disagree? What would you have taken?
Yeah, I would have taken the Flip the Switch still. I think just taking a second copy of this is pretty good. Again, it plays well with the Flip the Switch. Well, I don't want to say Flip the Switch plays well with Flip the Switch because that's not necessarily true. If one of them is good, you're going to cast one of them. But I would say that if I take 2 flip the switches, I can start to build towards, kind of an instant speed package where I go like, now I'm going to prioritize other instants so that I can play the game instant speed, which is just like a big advantage over playing the game sorcery speed. So, yep, I would just take that, but I don't think any of these are bad picks at all. So, I disagree, basically.
Got it.
All right, moving on to pick 7 here. What do we get? Basically, nothing too tricky.
Yeah, nothing. I took the Silversmith.
Yeah, Silversmith is the best card in this pack by quite a bit, and it's, the one that goes with your colors, too. We take another one, which is just nice, yeah.
It is. So real quick, you talked about playing at instant speed. Is Secrets of the Key any good?
Yeah. So this is not a card I want to play with at instant speed. I would say like this falls into the camp of there's just so many value creatures in this format that you don't need to play raw tempo negative card draw. And this is speed, like when we're talking about tempo negative card draw, this is real tempo negative. You're spending 3 mana to draw your first card, and then you're spending like an additional 6 or 8 to draw a few more. It's just so much mana. So I don't think I ever want to put this card in my deck, basically.
And then is the Drownyard Amalgam good in this format at all?
Oh, it's
I
okay.
haven't seen it.
It's okay. I don't mind it as like a 5-drop if I just, want a 5-drop. My 5-drop slot doesn't have much there. I'm like, okay, I'll put that in. But I really want it when I have flashback or disturb cards. That's when, if you can draw a card off of this thing when it enters, that's the best, that's the best use for it. If you're just playing it as like a 3/6 unblockable sometimes, it's not terrible, but I'd like to get some value off of it, basically. All right, moving on to pick 9 here. We're just getting all the Silversmiths in the world.
Yeah, I actually didn't take my 3rd Silversmith. I took the Blessed Defiance.
Is that a nod to doing some 17 lands data here?
Yes,
some
exactly.
Homework? Yeah.
I don't think in a vacuum I would have made this pick, and I don't know if it's the right pick. But I saw that Blessed Defiance had a pretty good win percentage on 17 lands, so I ended up taking it.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting one to talk about, Blessed Defiance here, because this is not the type of card that we see be a powerful effect generally or a desirable effect. But I think a few things are going on here, right? Number one. This is just like the best version of this effect I think we've seen. Just it does a lot of small things. +2 is more than we usually see. +1, making a 1/1 spirit is better than the token. I think last time we saw this type of card make like a 3/2 token, which I'd say on average a 1/1 spirit is better than a 3/2 token. And the big thing I want to highlight here is Lifelink. Lifelink is, I think, a criminally underrated ability, right? I think just like the ability to swing a race. We've seen Story Seeker, 2-mana 2/2 Lifelink, or cards like that overperform time and time again. Incidental life gain is just a really powerful thing in a lot of limited formats. I mean, most limited formats. And the way that I like to think about this card, Blessed Defiance, is not so much a trick, right? It's not like a combat trick. You don't really win the combat. But it's almost like a Healer's Hawk. So 1 mana, 1/1 flyer lifelink plus a Bone Splinters.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So it's like Healer's Hawk plus Bone Splinters, where you get the 1/1 flyer, you gain a little bit of life, and you get to kill their best creature for your worst creature a lot of the time. It's a little bit situational because you have to like line things up. But the times when you get gotten by this, they go like 1 mana. My small thing trades with your big thing, I gain a bunch of life, and I make a flyer. You often feel pretty bad. So This might seem like a weird pick, but I do agree with you, because I think, you're getting a little bit clogged on 4s, and this is a very good card, right?
I also just wanted to diversify against the 3rd Gavany Silversmith.
Yeah, totally. I think, like a deck where you already had a lot of good 2-drops, a good beatdown deck, you could take a 3rd or a 4th Silversmith, but I don't think your other cards really point that direction right now. Well, maybe we will be taking a 3rd Silversmith after all. Let's see. Did you take the Ritual Guardian here, potentially?
I thought about it, but I didn't really... I've had a chance to play with the Ritual Guardian a couple times. It's nothing special.
No, it's fine.
I thought the Silversmith was better just in general. So
totally. I'm in for that. There. Agree. Then we see this pack where we have some... We can either take the Gale Drifter. Yep, I'm in for that. We take, Ritual Guardian now, so agree. And let's see, the last few picks here do not matter all that much. So, end of pack 1. Thoughts about your end of pack 1 here?
Well, I navigated completely without a mistake.
Yeah, well, congrats. That's all. I mean, I think that just speaks volumes to doing your homework a little bit, right?
Doing the homework.
Yeah, totally. I think awesome. So, as far as checking in on the pack and reading the table, what are your thoughts?
I think it's clear to me that white is going to be one of my primary colors.
I think so
getting
too.
a lot of that. I'm not really sure I'm seeing a strong black or blue signal either way. So just looking at the cards I have, I'm like, which of these are better? And I think if I was evaluating these in a vacuum, I'd say the Siege Zombie and the Eat and the Live are better than the Flip the Switch and the Abomination. But I don't think that's what the 17 land says. So I don't know. I just kind of said I'm white base and we'll see what comes for blue or black.
Yeah, I would exactly. I wouldn't even worry about like, is my blue better, is my black better right now? I would just say, which, you know, I think congrats to you for saying like, yeah, I'm white. I've identified I'm going to be base white. I would just say, after I know I'm base white, let's just see what happens. You know, I don't think I'm going to drive my draft in any certain direction, black, white, or blue, white just yet. I'm just gonna see how the packs pan out, and you know, at a certain point, you got to say, all right, I'm going to be one of these two colors. But as long as I can just keep taking good white cards, which out of this pack we also can as well, that's what I'm going to be doing. Right, delay that decision. Just keep taking white cards as long as you can. So what do you think about this pack?
My other observation was I'm light on 2-drops. I mean, my curve's already pretty beefy at the 4 spot.
That's a very important, you know, all these lessons, Nathan, that you indeed are retaining. Yeah. All right, thoughts on this pack?
I had never seen this rare before, so you'll see me read it. It doesn't seem great.
No.
And I took the white 2-drop.
Yeah. Ambitious Farmhand here is fantastic. It's one of those cards that reads pretty well, right? Comes in, it's a 1/1. Draws you a land, which is just like not a bad rate for just... If it was just 2 mana 1/1 draw you a land, it would be a fine card. The fact that it can transform into a 3/3 lifelink, which, you know, I was saying how lifelink is so good. Really fantastic card. And this is actually one of the ones that the data surprised me on a little bit, where this is actually one of the top uncommons according to 17 lands. Like, it's one of the higher win rate uncommons. It's like top 5, I'm pretty sure. So where I was taking this card and I was like, oh yeah, it's a pretty good card, I wasn't prioritizing it as highly as I think I should have. So yeah, that's somewhere I even learned from the data too. So they agree. The other card in contention here is Lunar Veteran, which, you know, we're getting real deep on data talk today, but this is another one that's a huge overperformer that the data really highlights. I think, you know, a lot of players didn't have this on their radar as a card that was, you know, a decent card. I liked it similar as the Farmhand. I actually liked it going in. I was like, oh, it does a lot of little stuff. You know, it is can sacrifice it in your black-white decks. It sits there, gains you like 10 life over the course of the game, gives you a flyer to put counters on. There's a lot of little things, but I wouldn't have guessed that it's as good as it is, or it's performing as well as it is in the format, being like a top 10 common, which is contextual. You gotta take that, you know, you gotta be careful about where you actually play it. I think it's good in blue-white and black-white. Not as good in the Naya decks, red-white and green-white. Still fine there. But I do think that Lunar Veteran is a card I'd be happy to play in our pile here. But we'll take the Farmhand.
2 other comments, or a comment and a question.
Yeah,
One
sure.
of the things I had a chance to play the Lunar Veteran, and I didn't realize that when it transforms, it's no longer like a Soul Warden. It's like when things leave the battlefield, which I've never seen.
Yeah, it's the opposite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a general question, like ignoring the Esper color cards in this pack, like none of the other cards really seem good to me. But what am I missing? Are any of these good?
Yes. I would say you're missing maybe 1.5 cards. Do you want to take a stab at what do you think might be?
I mean, if I had to guess, it would probably be the Farmer and the Fight card.
Yeah, I like the Farmer quite a bit. The Farmer is actually really good. Like it's you know, Organ Hoarder, which is the 3/2 blue creature, enters the battlefield, draws some cards. That card's really good. It's the top common in the set, in my opinion. And Farmer's not that far off of that card. It's a different card for sure. It only always draws you a land instead of a spell. But it's also 1 mana cheaper, right? So this is a card I like, you know, it feels your self-mill stuff where you're like drawing cards out of your graveyard. Definitely one of Green's better commons. In fact, I'd say it's the best green common. Duel for Dominance, also, yeah, the fight spell here, not bad. Hungry for More would be like my, my shout out honorable mention as like can be good in some black-red decks, but black-red is a deck I'm not trying to get into that often. And well, Darren Stinger is actually a pretty good 1-drop, but it has the red problem, as you know, it's just like it has that red tax. So
I love the art in Duel for Dominance. I think that's really cool.
Oh yeah, it's pretty sweet. Yeah. He's like,
and I think the eccentric farmer art's funny too. It's like a guy feeding a centipede a pumpkin.
Yeah, he's just got this like horde of centipedes.
Hey, you want this pumpkin?
All right, we move on to pick 2 here. What do we have here?
So I actually thought about taking the marsh in case, I wasn't sure which color, but I think because it's not base white, like if it was white black or white blue, I don't know if those lands are in the format, to be honest. I was like, well, maybe I'll do that. The covert cut purse, I don't really like that effect that much, so I just went right with the removal effect.
Yep.
Olivia's Midnight Ambush.
Yep, I think that cut purse is pretty bad. It never feels. I'm never impressed when my opponent plays it, and when I played it a few times already, I'm like, oh, it's just like the backside is so expensive. The front side, it's kind of hard to get value out of sometimes. So yeah, not a huge fan. You did the ambush, and I'd say this is a disagree, not a mistake, but a disagree, because I think you are, just like I was saying before, equally likely to be blue-white or black-white. And I would just take the Search Party Captain here as just a white card. Now, you have a bunch of Gavany Silversmiths, so taking another 4 is, a little bit suspect. But at the same time, it's not really a 4. It's a 3 a lot of the time if you have a 2-drop. You attack your 2, you play this on 3. So I think either is fine, basically. But I would lean towards Search Party here.
Okay. I wish the Covert Cut Purse had the... if something was dealt damage on the backside as well, so you could attack, it dies, deals damage, and then disturb it back.
Oh yeah, that'd be sweet.
That would be a better design.
Like designer Nathan over here. All right, moving on here. What do we pick up out of this pack?
So I really looked at the green rare because like hey, pack 3 rare green, but I didn't want to go there. So I looked at that for a bit. It doesn't seem great as well.
No, not a great card.
Yes. So I went with the black removal spell. Again, Defenestrate, I guess is what that is. Yeah.
Yep. I'm into that. This is a pick where, I was just saying you should take white cards when you can because you're not sure if you're black-white or you're blue-white. But I think that Defenestrate's enough better than Morning Patrol and certainly not better than Unruly Mob. I would just take it here. So, move on to pick 4 here. Oof.
All right, pack. So yeah, this one I really struggled with, and I think this will probably be the first mistake. The Scab Wrangler seems strong, but I feel like my black was stronger than my blue at this point. You can see me reading the Vengeful Strangler here. It seems pretty good. It's like a black 2-drop that turns into a removal spell. And then the other one I was looking at was the Gavany Trapper. I think I ended up on the Strangler.
Ah, interesting. So I would take the Wrangler here. Wrangler, Strangler. I think that Wrangler is, there's a short list of mythic uncommons in this set, right? It's like Morbid Opportunist.
That card's a house.
Yeah, that card's insane. I don't think the Farmhand quite gets there, but Wrangler is on that list for me of mythic uncommons where this thing comes down and in blue-white or in black-white, you're going to have a lot of expendable creatures running around, and it just dominates the board a lot of the time, right? Early, if you need to trade it off, sure, you trade it off. But when it comes down on turn, 6, you've already developed your board, it makes things a nightmare for your opponent, right? Because they just can't attack with their biggest creature anymore, and then if they attack with too many things, you go, okay, tap down your other stuff, kill you, right? I think that we're not deep enough into black, and Wrangler is good enough that I would just take the Wrangler here. Just to speculate, basically. If you weren't going to take the Wrangler, I would take the Gavany Trapper as a white card, like we were saying, instead of a black card, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So, first mistake of the format.
First mistake. That's okay. We made it this far. We made it really far.
I made it 16 picks there, 18 picks. So you would walk away from, you would say we're not that deep into black, even though we have 3 removal spells. I'm just, I guess I'm so attached to removal spells.
So you're right. I will say not that deep into black maybe isn't the best way to approach it. I would say that Wrangler is enough better than the other cards in that pack that it's worth speculating on it there. Even though, because I care about a Trapper. I don't care that much about a Strangler if that makes my deck. But I think that the times that Wrangler makes my deck, I'll be thrilled. And the times I'm missing a Gavany Trapper, it's not the end of the world, especially when you already have other... if you're not going to play blue, you're going to play black, which means you have those removal spells. You won't miss the Trapper as much, right? So, Yeah.
If you're, again, I don't know the format that well. If you're blue-white, what are your removal spells in this format, just in general?
Oh, you've got Revenge of the Drowned, which is the 4-mana instant. Put something on, you target something, they can put it on the top or bottom. You make a zombie. That's the best one. I think that's actually the best interaction spell in the format. You've got the Tapper, the Gavin Trapper, which is pretty good.
I have the one I'm drafting here, and I take the Candle Trap out of this.
Yeah. I was going to say, you have Candle Trap here, and you have Locked in the Cemetery. And this brings us to another point where I would call this a mistake, too. I'd be much happier playing 2 Defiances than my first Candle Trap. I think that this card and Locked in the Cemetery, which is like the blue version of this, sort of, really suffer in this format, right? And I think that we've seen time and time again enchantment-based removal spells really suffer. These aura-based removal spells, I should say, because, Borrowed Time, the come in, exile something is actually good. But these aura-based removal spells suffer for numerous reasons, right? They're a little bit clunky. They get punished by sacrifice and bounce effects. Sometimes leaving the thing on the battlefield is a problem because it has an activated ability. Now, this one, you can get it off the battlefield with some mana, but then it's 4 mana to do that, right? I think your baseline for this type of effect going forward, with just the way that creatures are designed and they've got good abilities, they're just pushed, is I think you should start these as not good cards, as cards you don't want in your deck, basically. Now, that might change, right? Given context of the format, context of your deck. Candle Trap is okay in a really, really controlling deck, perhaps. But until it proves me otherwise, basically, I don't want to play the card, and I don't want to prioritize the card in the format, is the way I would put it.
Got it.
So yeah, that's, second mistake, but that's okay.
Back to back, man.
Yeah.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. There wasn't really many choices for me here. The Bait Hook Angler, I think, looked okay, but yep. I had a good experience with the Homestead Courage before, so I went with the Courage in case I ended up in an aggro deck.
I would take Angler here. I think this is another mistake here, because I think Homestead Courage it's tough. This is a really powerful card in a vacuum. I think it suffers in the format a little bit because there's so much good removal, basically. And so when removal is good and prevalent, enhancement type cards, auras especially, and these kind of cards do suffer a little bit. You kind of are just asking yourselves to get blown out tempo-wise and card advantage-wise, right? So I think in the most aggressive, low to the ground, all 2-drops, white decks, you can play Homestead Courage, but just generically, I think Bait Hook Angler is a better card. And, I think recognizing that you're probably thinking you're going to be white-black at this point, but still, I would just walk that line a little bit longer, basically.
Okay, 2 questions about this pack.
For sure.
One, Rotten Reunion, is that any good in this format?
It is okay. I think that I played this card a few times, and you can play it if you have a lot of uses for the zombies. Sometimes you nab something important out of the graveyard. It's like has its moments basically, but it's not a card that I'm prioritizing at all. But I have played it, yeah. And
then obviously not for our deck, Ghoul Caller's Harvest. There we go. Is that any good?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's pretty mad. It's a lot of work, right? It makes X for half the number of creature cards in your graveyard rounded down. It's a lot to get that to work. Yeah. And for your troubles, you get a bunch of decayed zombies, which are more of a resource than actual creatures. I do want to call out Death Bonnet Sprout, though. I think that card's great.
Okay,
really big.
I've had it once.
Big fan of the card. It's like this little 1-drop that grows into a larger creature and then can start eating things out of your opponent's grave. Eat their disturbed and flashback cards. So yeah, big fan of that. That is the best card in this pack, I think. But of course, not for us.
Yeah, I've only again limited in this format. I've had it once and played against it 3 times and never seen it transform.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think I see people milling spells and lands and stuff. I think this one I went with another Silversmith.
Yep, no real decisions here. Just take a Silversmith. This isn't, even if we were blue-white, I don't think this is really a cover-up deck. We're not the that instant speed deck that I was talking about earlier. We went to the next pick.
I went with the 2-drop.
I would take the Silverbolt here, I think. I think Cathar Commando is enough of a medium 2-drop, and Silverbolt's quite good, that I would take the Silverbolt here. You are a little bit low on 2s. I agree with that. But I also think that we have a pack and a half to pick up more 2s, and Silverbolt is pretty good, honestly. A pretty solid removal spell. So I think this might be more of a disagree than a mistake or anything. But I just want to note that I like Silverbolt quite a lot in the format.
So this, I guess, is twofold. One is I don't know how we're early enough in the format that I don't know how many 2-drops are out there. So I was like, I just snag when I can.
Yeah.
And I was like, I already have 3 removal spells. Let's fix the gap that I'm missing with the 2-drop. But it's good to know Silverbolt. I guess, the Werewolf Claws does come up, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes it does. And if it doesn't, then the 3 damage usually kills the thing you need to kill. Is often the thing, right? I guess the difference here is that, or for me, the dividing line is that I think Cathar Commando is like quite a poor 2-drop, right? That's why. If this was like, the witch, the 2/2 witch that gains flying, or really any of the black 2-drops, I'd say, yeah, really, good job, Nathan, locking your 2s. I'm hoping not to play Cathar Commando in most of my decks, though, is the reason, which is weird. It has a lot of words on it. It looks like it'd be pretty good, but it's just kind of
I think I'm probably just biased because the first Boros deck that I had had it, and it did great.
Oh, but sweet, again, okay.
Recency bias, right?
But yeah, it's not a bad card by any means. Like, I wouldn't feel bad about running it, but I think basically it's early enough that I'd hope to not run it. Or early enough in the draft that I'd hope to pick up other things to not have to run it. All right.
I think this pick was irrelevant. I took the blood pack.
Sure.
But I'm going to mark that down as irrelevant.
Yeah, irrelevant. I don't think there's, I don't care about a blood pact. We take
same thing here.
A barrage. Yeah, that's fine. Again, irrelevant pick. Take an unruly mob. Yeah, so the rest of this pack probably doesn't have much for us. Taking the Bloods of Defiance, it does come back, so that's cool. Agree with that.
I actually think this is a different pack because remember last time I took the home.
Oh, that's true. And we also, now that I think about it, we don't take the Buzz of Defiance. I completely jumped the gun here. Yeah. we take Storm Rider Spirits. So talk to me about that.
Probably just a mistake. I think I was like, I already have a Blessed Defiance. I already have a Homestead Courage. Let's diversify with the Spirit in case blue is wide open in pack 3.
Yeah, that's totally fair. No, I think that's good. It's fine. I would take the Blessed Defiance here myself because I don't mind playing 2 copies of the card, but I think that's totally fine logic. So that's not a mistake on my end here, or on in my books, I would say.
Irrelevant.
All right, moving on to the last pack here. What do we see?
So I actually had to read this card. I was like, am I like I get it. It looks like it's pretty strong, but I'm trying to choose between white-black or white-blue. Blue-black seemed out of the question. So I was like, all right, what are the other cards in here that are black or white that will definitely make the deck? So I went with the Foul Play.
The Foul Play, the removal spell. Yeah, so you spent, I'm sure, a lot of time reading Ludovic here.
I did.
It's got so many words on it. It's a good card, yeah. But I think that you're really far away from blue-black, and it's not like a card I would splash. So, yeah, Foul Play is great. Foul Play is fantastic. Really like the card. There is another card in the pack that is very close to Foul Play, though. Do you know what it is?
If I had to guess, it's probably the Hobbling Zombie.
It's a Static Awakener.
Oh, gosh. No, I don't. Which one?
It says the 1-drop here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
This card's real good. It's actually, I think it's in contention for the best black common for me. Like, it's 4 mana 4/4 draw a card a lot of the time because you're sacking a zombie or something, right? Sacking your decay zombie. So real big fan of this card. I would take the Foul Play though here.
Okay, it's good to note this. I've played with the Ecstatic Awakener and had trouble flipping it, but I probably just didn't have the zombie density that you've had.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah, I mean, I prioritized everything with decay on it super, super highly. So, all right, we move on. We take a Bloodline Calling. Yep, I agree with that. Removal. I agree with that over the Search Party Captain. I will note at this point, though, I think we have enough removal that in future picks, I would pick something like Search Party Captain over a removal spell at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought that's the first one that I've had that has like a Sweeper Clause to it. Mm-hmm. It seemed like it was pretty versatile.
Yeah, it's nice. Get rid of all those decay tokens. All right, moving on to...
You can see I pull the blue out. I said we're not blue.
Yeah, which is smart.
So here, a couple of options for 2-drops. You have the Candlegrove Witch or the Siege Zombie. I went with the Siege Zombie.
Yep. I think this is a close pick, and I think I would go to my deck here and look how many zombies can I make to make Siege Zombie good, right? Just like how many bodies, and how well do I enable Coven for Candlegrove Witch? And if I could do one better than the other... I think I would take, whichever one lend itself to whatever strategy. And I think you're a little bit better at enabling Coven than you are at tapping here, right? Because you've got 4 Gabney Silversmiths. You've even got the we don't have a trapper. That's not true. We don't have any trappers, which is a nice 0 power creature. But
you would, but I don't.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, in my head, I do. I think I would take the Witch here. It's not by a lot. It's more of a disagree. But I think it just like is a bit better in your deck than Siege Zombie is.
Good to know. That's a good thought. I wouldn't have thought of that in this format. So that's a good observation.
All right, moving on to pick 4 here.
So I wasn't blown away by any of the Esper cards here, and I was like, what if I want to splash the blue? So I took the Evolving Wilds.
Oh, totally. You know what? Even if you're not splashing the blue here, you should just take the Evolving Wilds because it's good to have a good mana base, right? Like it's good to not be on a 9/8 mana base where you're just playing the classic, not very good limited mana base. One Evolving Wilds, it's not gonna magically make you never draw the wrong colors, but it does help quite a bit, right? So I will always play the first Evolving Wilds in my 2-color decks, unless I'm like super low to the ground, all 1-drop, all 2-drop aggro. Then I probably won't, but I really do prioritize the first Evolving Wilds just to have a little bit better mana, basically.
So that's agree?
Yeah, totally agree.
All right.
Yeah, and the rest of this pack is not exciting. So Behemoth is a card I try not to play. Bat Whisperer is a card.
Any good? The Bat Whisperer or whatever it is.
It's medium. It's a card I would categorize as I would try not to play as well. So yeah, nothing too exciting. All right, moving on here. We got another foul play. Awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, I said in future picks I wouldn't take a removal spell over a creature, but I think that Morning Patrol is. It's fine, but its foul play is enough better for sure. I would say this is, I think you're taking too big of a power hit if you were to take the creature there over a removal spell, even though we have a lot of removal. All right.
I guess, learning on the fly, you'd probably take the Blessed Defiance, but I took the Evolving Wilds again.
Yeah, that's totally fine too. I actually think that's fine. Totally agree with that, actually. I don't think, two Evolving Wilds is fine too. I think that's not a bad pick at all.
So here we have the choice of 2 3/2/3 drops.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I really wasn't impressed with the Ritual Guardian, so I thought this Celestia Sanctifier seemed like a little more upside. Yeah,
I'm hoping not to play either of them. I actually like Guardian more than Sanctifier, just because, again, Lifelink is very good. Yeah, Lifelink is good. That's today's lesson, Nathan. Lifelink is very good.
I think that's what I'm learning. Yeah, Lifelink is good in this format.
Yeah.
That's a disagree.
Yeah, that would be a disagree for me. And then we take a No Way Out. Nothing really matters here. We get a Hobbling Zombie, which is not the worst card here. And we round out the pack. Wow, the Search Party Captain wheel. That's great. That's great news for you.
So it made the deck.
Sweet, yeah. Move on. And we take the Witch Wheel. Okay, well, both you get the best of both worlds, and I imagine the last part of this pack is irrelevant.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, good. Yeah, you're good.
You got a Blessed Defiance there at the end.
Yeah. So I just want to say, well navigated draft. I think you found, a pretty good lane. You got some powerful cards here, and yeah, I think like I said before, dipping into the 17 lands data really did help. Just inform a lot of your picks. If I, not speak for you, but I think that's what I'm seeing here.
That and honestly, I find listening to the set reviews has helped me less and less.
Yeah.
Versus making sure I pay attention to what streamers are saying, or yourself in particular, at the beginning of a format. So
yeah, totally. I mean, we do our best to evaluate cards, especially for those who are, maybe only going to go to the pre-release or something. That's one of the big things about the set reviews, where maybe people only go to the pre-release and they're maybe only going to do 1 or 2 drafts. They're not going to stick around forever. And it's important to get the set review content out for those people, right? So that's actually a sizable crowd. But if you plan to stick around, yeah, I mean, the evaluations are going to change as soon as day one, right? So totally agree. I think, streams or, podcast content after the fact, after set reviews is also super, super helpful. Just looking at this build real quick here. Let's see what we settled on just to get a final build. So
I think I settled on a 16 land deck. What did I end up cutting? I ended up cutting the Candle Trap and there you go. Yeah,
let's see. Candle Trap is definitely the cut I would make here. Is there anything I feel strongly about playing? I would play the Blessed Defiance here. I just think the second compy is probably going to be better than. I'm saying it's probably going to be better than, and I'm not even sure what I want to take out yet.
I have a thing that I would suggest that it's better than the second foul play. I ran into places where I wanted to kill a creature, but the power was over 2.
Interesting. Yeah, I think foul play it's tough because when foul play is good, it's really, really good, right? You kill a thing, you get a token. I think I wouldn't cut the foul play because I think yes, it can be awkward sometimes, but there's enough times when you're like...
I know what the actual answer is now that I'm looking at the deck, which was terrible for me. The Unruly Mob. Oh,
yeah, get that mob out of there. Yeah, stupid Unruly Mob. They printed at every single Innistrad set, and it's never been good.
It's like, zombies and stuff. Like, it is just terrible.
No, it's a 1/1 and then a 2/2. Yeah, okay. All right, well, then that's our build. And, I agree with the build outside of that one card. Nathan, what a great first episode we had here. I look forward, I hope that the future drafts will go as smoothly as this one did. And
we'll see.
We'll check back in a week or two.
I thought maybe it might be helpful if I could just share one lesson learned each format, like where I punted or made a mistake.
For sure.
And this one's pretty straightforward. I interpreted Eaten Alive as you can pay black and sacrifice a creature, or just play 4. But it's actually pay 5.
Yeah.
And that cost me one of my games. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. It's either 1 or 5, not 1 or 4.
Yeah. And then, that's a mistake you'll never make ever again, right? Yeah. It's one of those things that you're hoping to save some poor soul from making that mistake, for making it for the first time.
That's my punt of the week. That definitely cost me one of my games.
All right, well, let's wrap it up here. Nathan, thank you as always, and thank you, viewer out there, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.